All right, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. And I think on Instagram. Doesn't seem like it. Okay, let me try it again. Oops. It's taking some time. Anyways, yeah, I just want to introduce Mae to our live today. And she has founded the Subtle Asian Breakups on Facebook. And also she is at Mae Yan Coaching on Instagram. So we're going to do a live coaching on the technique called nonviolent communication. And so I'm excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Clover. I'm really excited to have this coaching conversation with you.
Yay! Because I know personally for me, to communicate in conflict is really difficult because I either just become like super quiet or I just like blow up. Or become like passive aggressive. So I'm like, I need to learn how to do this in a non-violent way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fascinating, right? When I talk to people about nonviolent communication, they think, oh, well, you know, that sounds like something really like out of reach, right? But actually, the process is quite simple once you get the hang of it and just create that habit and start thinking in that mindset.
Right. And it's basically a framework, right? Where you can just kind of like check off the list, and then that way, I guess, when we're overcome with emotions during the conflict, we can remember, okay, like just like do this step, this step, this step. And when we communicate, I think it makes things a lot easier.
Yes, and some of us like need that checklist, right?
Right.
To make communication like less abstract. Yeah, so I'm really excited to share that with you.
Amazing. Okay, so I don't know what is going on with Instagram. It's literally not doing anything.
Spinning its wheels, huh?
Oh, there you go. Okay, now I'm live. Now I'm live on Instagram, but it takes time for me to have you to see you for some reason. But I will wait. Once you are in, wave to me, and then I'll invite you. But anyhow, so yeah,
I see you. I see you live.
Yay!
So now I am joined.
Okay, let's see. Hi, Serene. Okay. Yay. Awesome. The request. Also, yeah.
Got it. Go live with, yeah.
Yay!
Perfect.
Awesome. I know we're doing this double.
I'm turning off the volume.
Hey, let me see if I can hear you though. We're still connecting. But anyway, so yeah, we're doing nonviolent communication today to de-escalate conflict. Oh, I see you kind of.
It says it's paused due to poor connection.
Uh-oh. Wonder if it's from my side or your side.
I wonder if Wi-Fi is not going to
be able to do both. Uh-oh, it might be frozen on Facebook too. Well, then let me just talk for a bit. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about... Oh, are you back?
I'm going to try to use...
Oh, Serene said IG is super glitchy these days as well. Uh-oh. She might have to, Mae might have to go to use her data and see if this works. Ooh, thank you for your patience, guys. Is this working? Oh, let's see. Let's see if this works. Okay.
And it's loading.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, guys, for your patience on Facebook and all. And by the way, who is watching, let me know, because I cannot really see. So type in the comments. And I see Serene. I see M Clem 08. on Instagram.
Because you weren't using the app.
What?
Not sure what
That's
that means.
strange. I should be on. Weird. Oh, let me try it again. So apparently it's very glitchy on Instagram. If it doesn't work, we might have to stick with just the Facebook, YouTube thing.
Okay.
So if people don't have Facebook, you can go to YouTube at Unconventional Asians. You would be able to watch it there too.
Yeah, it's
not
being
working
very
out.
strange. Let me try one more time.
Okay. Yeah, it's just connecting, no? Because like if you use both devices, it might slow one down, right?
It shouldn't, because I'm on data on one and then Wi-Fi on the other.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sending a request now.
Okay. Thank you guys for your patience. You guys are the best. It's always technical difficulty. Connecting. Anyhow, so I'm just gonna keep talking.
No worries.
There you
Okay.
go. Hopefully it works.
Amazing. There we go.
Oh, I don't see you though on Instagram.
You know,
oh, there you go. I see
oh
it.
wait, I have to prop it up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Is that
that
weird though? Okay,
That works.
hold on.
That works.
I think I need to like, ooh, that's very low. I'm just trying to think. If I turn it sideways, is that gonna have me sideways the entire time?
Yeah, it does have you sideways, I think.
Hold on, let me turn on the, oh no, that's the screen. 'Cause, you know, so my microphone, right?
Yeah.
Like prevents it from like standing up straight. Does that make sense?
Oh,
I mean,
I see. It could kind of, like, if you put it on your laptop, I think it might work, because that's what I usually do. But it might fall.
Exactly. This is such a situation. Oh Lord. Okay. Technical difficulties.
Thank you guys for your patience.
Here, let me see. I can do this.
Well, wait, meanwhile you figure that out, I'll describe what nonviolent communication is.
Yeah, I think we got it. It's a weird setup.
Awesome. Okay. It works. You look great in both. I love it. Yeah, so I'll just kind of reintroduce Mae and what she does. Right now, she's actually in Abu Dhabi, which is super cool. And we have like a 7-hour time change. So she's at night, I'm in EST. And can you describe your background, your coaching background, actually? Besides that, you're the founder of Subtle Asian Breakups, so you kind of specialize in relationships. And what's your experience like with nonviolent communication, this specific technique?
Yeah, so I actually became a breakup and relationship coach as a result of going through my own heartbreak a couple years back. So that's what inspired me to go on this path of sharing what I know and empowering other people to also help them through their breakups and life transitions. And actually, nonviolent communication is something that I learned many, many years back. And it found its way back in my life again with the coach that I was working with. And I just realized how powerful of a tool it is to not only help us with communicating with others, but actually in understanding your own feelings and needs. And that's where I kind of start when I help coaching clients understand their own feelings and needs first, as a way for self-care, self-love, self-acceptance, and creating that really strong foundation with yourself. You know, the relationship that you have with yourself is where I start usually. And then we work on relationships with other people. So NVC, I've kind of tailored it to work in both directions, like the relationship with yourself and the relationship with others. Although typically it is taught to help you with communicating with others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm just listening to you on Instagram. It's quite slow. So I think there's like a connection issue there. So should we just kind of get out of it and then just focus on Facebook? That might be easier.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Having a little bit of a hiccup, and I'll just kind of upload this whole conversation onto it. That might be easier. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no problem.
Yeah, I think, because otherwise I think that's a little bit difficult. So thank you for your patience on Instagram. I'm going to end it. Okay. And then that way we can just focus on this thing and not have to.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. All right, there you go. Things might be easier this way.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because we have more people watching now. So let us know in the comment where you're from. And if you have any questions at all, because I agree, I read this, or more like I was listening to the audiobook for Nonviolent Communication, and it was very enlightening because to kind of go through the frameworks, which you will explain in a bit how it works. So we can identify specifically how we feel objectively to the other person. So it's clear enough for them to understand what you need from them, instead of kind of like put this subjective narration on the other person and blaming them, which makes people defensive. So it's a very powerful technique. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
that's a great summary.
Yeah. If you don't mind walking us through the frameworks and how NVC works, and maybe our audience get to know what it's like.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually curious, am I going to be able to see the comments here that come up?
Yep. So on the right-hand side, there's a chart. There's people coming up to
Got it.
in the comments. Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure that I'm also paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So NVC is a framework. It's also a process. So I'll explain the 4 steps of NVC. And basically, when you use NVC, you can think of yourself in either the listener's position or the speaker's position. So in a conversation between 2 people, one person is listening, and the listener is focusing on listening with empathy and listening to really understand the other person's feelings and needs. And empathy also encompasses hearing them without hearing blame and criticism as best as it can. Because that's where we tend to get riled up. That tends to make us more reactive as opposed to responding skillfully. Okay, and on the other side, there is the speaker. The person that's speaking is trying to clearly express themselves, also without blaming or criticizing, and also expressing very honestly. So that also requires quite a bit of skill as well, right? Like, how can you say what you mean without hurting someone's feelings? And we'll get to that. But just to know that that's the aim of NVC, empathy, compassion on both sides is always the foundation. And so when you kind of go in with that mindset, that really shifts the energy around your conversation. When you're in that, I would say, heart space of trying to empathize with someone, trying to be compassionate. And we'll elaborate a little bit more on that, because those are sometimes abstract concepts for people. But going back to the process, so it is 4 steps, right? The first step is about identifying, using objective words, someone's behavior. So typically when we're describing someone's behavior, we tend to use judgmental terms. And so I'll teach you how to refrain from doing that.
Right.
So the second step then is to identify feelings and needs. And it could be your feelings and needs, or maybe guessing at someone else's feelings and needs. And then the step after that, the last step, is to make a request. And when you're making a request, it's about what you're asking someone for, help in meeting a need of yours. And so that's, in a nutshell, the 4 steps. There's a lot that we can dive into, but before getting into that, I just want to give you a summary.
Sounds good. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's going to be very useful for people to kind of gauge how this is going to go. Because it's going to
Yeah.
be a live coaching where we're just going to role play, and I'm going to be like, oh, not my usual self, but like I guess my usual self, like when I were to uh, be in anger and resentment, how would I kind of blow up? I guess. Or try
Right.
to request the need. I'll try. I'm not angry right now, so I'm like to be in that zone.
So like
And try to,
who should I pretend to be, Clover?
if you can be the listener, and I'll be the person bitching about things.
Okay, sure.
um,
That sounds good.
so okay, so let's role play some examples. So let's pretend that we're in a relationship,
Okay.
and I'm upset because you usually don't really listen to me, or I've never expressed that you weren't listening to me, and but then because you're busy doing your thing or whatever, I felt like you didn't weren't really paying attention, right? Or
Mhm.
giving me the responses that I want to hear. And so
Yeah.
I've been quiet, I didn't say anything, and then one day it just like I got super triggered. I just want to blow up in your face. So
Yeah.
my usual response, it's I don't say anything, let you be, and whatever. After a few times, I would feel very unrecognized and unworthy. And then so here, this is what I would say. Um, babe, you like never listen to me. Honestly, like I'm just really upset right now. Like, do you even really care about me? Like seriously, like I've been trying to talk to you all the time, and you're like never responding, or you're not really giving me any I guess active listening, and it seems like you're just trying to pretend that you are. I really need you to be there to like give me some recognition, because like I don't know if this is gonna work if it continues like that.
Hmm. Yeah. So actually, in what you just shared, I heard a
Yeah.
bunch of things that I want to
Hmm.
comment on.
Hmm.
So I may not necessarily be playing the role of your
Yeah.
boyfriend right
Right.
now, but
Right.
more
Right.
so
Right.
the coach, just to be
Yeah.
clear for
Yeah.
the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I
Um,
like
so with NVC, you really learn to see people for their needs.
that. Mm.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, as human beings, we are trying to meet our own needs, and also at the end of the day, also trying to meet our partner's needs or our loved one's needs the
Hmm.
best way that we can. And so when we learn to identify our own needs, which are connected intimately with our feelings, then we can make a concrete request.
Mm.
So I heard that you were needing
Hmm.
recognition, right?
Hmm.
And it sounds like you also were needing to be seen and heard. Would you
Hmm.
say that's correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's right.
Um, and so those are the needs. And I'm curious, what were you feeling in that moment when you were expressing that those needs weren't met? So if in one sentence you could say, I feel, and then fill in the blank.
I feel abandoned when I am not heard, because
Mm.
now I can go down the rabbit hole of why. It was
Mm.
because in the past I've always been ignored, and when people don't kind of give me that recognition, or try to actively listen to what I say, I feel like I'm not worthy. So the abandonment
Mm.
and the unworthiness comes up, and that's why it's very hard on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So
Yeah.
one thing I do want to point out, what makes NVC get kind of technical is
Mm.
I noticed you said I felt abandoned. So abandoned
Mhm.
is not technically using NVC framework. It's not technically a feeling.
Mm.
So
Right.
there's actually a list that you can study up of
I see.
all the
Okay.
NVC feelings.
Ah.
Um, and so the feelings are broken down. You can almost see them as positive feelings and negative feelings.
Right.
Positive feelings are feelings that you experience
Mhm.
when your needs are met.
Right.
Negative feelings are the feelings, or sorry, the feelings that are more negative are
Mhm.
the feelings that you have when your needs are not met. And so abandon actually doesn't fit into
Interesting.
the negative feelings. And the reason for that is, you might be thinking, well, why not? Right? Like,
Yeah.
NVC categorizes feelings as feelings and non-feelings. So abandon would actually be considered a non-feeling. And the reason is because ultimately, using the NVC framework, you have to be responsible for your feelings. Right. So when you say you feel abandoned, that is actually putting responsibility on someone else. Someone abandoned you. Someone did something to you.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's really not fair, because when you say, I feel abandoned, that is actually putting blame and criticism on the other person, which is exactly what we want to avoid, right?
Ah, interesting. Okay. So in that case, what would be another word or another feeling word to replace it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it could be, I imagine that you might be feeling sad, right? Or frustrated or angry. So any assortment of feelings that you own yourself.
Got it. Right. Interesting.
Similarly, you might say, I feel betrayed or something. Like when people use words where typically ends in ed, it means that someone else is doing something to you.
True.
And again, if you say that, what tends to happen is that the other person's going to hear blame and criticism and judgment.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's exactly why we want to try to avoid that. So once you get used to the process, though, you'll know what words to avoid.
Right. So does feeling insecure a word, a feeling that you own, I guess?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
Feeling insecure.
It's like I'm feeling insecure because of my past trauma or baggage. So it's not really putting it on other people.
Exactly. So you can absolutely.
That's my word.
Yeah, you could say insecure, uneasy, and it's not limited to one word. You can, fill in the blank with as many as you want. And actually, in that moment, you may be experiencing a lot more feelings than you're even recognizing. And that's the cool thing. When I work with my coaching clients, I ask them to scan the entire list, which is like a whole page long of, 100 emotions essentially. So it's cool because like people really learn to understand the breadth and depth of emotions, the different type of emotions we experience.
Interesting. But I love the fact that I did that too, because it's just to illustrate how a lot of us use different feelings and emotions that had an underlying tone of blame, which was very enlightening what you just said, because even I was like, oh really? Like I didn't recognize that was like a thing. But it's true, when we do have to take personal responsibility for our own emotions, and when we can even use a different word to replace it, it takes away that negative connotation, and now you take your personal power back, which I love that.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for clarifying. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that, it's not our fault. I think that society kind of has taught us to use this language, unconsciously. So it's really cool that, it's just it's an easy switch, right? Once we practice that, then you'll catch yourself, and
great. Yeah, amazing. So I would say then it's okay to feel those words at the beginning, right? But it's just now realizing, asking yourself the question of, is this word a word that takes personal responsibility, or is it based on blame? And then from there, switch to another layer, and then another layer, just like kind of go deeper instead of like blaming yourself for saying that you said that word, because sometimes you can go into that rabbit hole as well of like self-abuse or like things of like I shouldn't have said that, and that's okay. Recognizing that it's part of the process, and then just try another word next time. That's all. So I just want to tell the audience that too, because I tend to do that. Like, I didn't do it right. Even I did identify my own feelings right. Okay, it's part of the process. We were never taught that, so it's all good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's do maybe a second scenario, or maybe what I should point out, or what I noticed about what you did was that, do you say like what I'm hearing is, or what I'm seeing is? Do you start off with that phrase?
Yeah. So you could say, I noticed, I observed.
Mm,
Another thing that, just to going back to what you were saying, my second point is that you mentioned you never listen to me, right?
mm, right,
And
right,
so
right.
using words that imply something absolute, like always, never,
Hmm.
just implies, again, blame and criticism.
Right,
And when in actuality, is it 100% of the time that they're not listening? I mean,
right,
there's
right,
probably maybe 1% of the time that they actually are. So
right.
what you're trying to convey is that, you want to be grounded in objectivity. So saying someone never listens is not a real
Right.
objective statement, right? It's not 100% true,
Right.
right?
So what if I say 95% of the time statistically you don't listen to me? This is very objective, right?
Maybe in scientific terms, but using the NVC process, the way that you make an observation versus evaluation, right? There's this kind of this twofold path, right? We want to learn how to make observations, which are non-judgmental.
Mhm.
Evaluations are judgmental. So the way you would do that is by saying something that you actually can see. Like, imagine
Mm,
you're recording the scene in front of
right.
you with a video camera. Can you prove that, like, in a court of law, right?
I see.
Does
Okay,
that
so
make
it's like
sense?
okay, let me do this then. So what I'm hearing you say is that if you don't sorry, in a situation when I feel unheard, oh wow. Sorry, a very sexy voice just came out.
Yeah. No worries.
um, don't worry, I don't have COVID. So I have to objectively observe the situation. So when I was feeling unheard, if that person is crossing his arms
Mhm.
and there's no eye contact, and that
Mhm.
is what I observed that to be a sign of not listening.
Right.
So that's the physical thing that I saw.
Right.
So would that be blaming the other person when I try to point that out and say,
Yeah.
like, I noticed that you weren't paying attention because you know you're not making eye contact and like your arms are crossed. So I got the impression that you weren't listening to me.
Mhm.
So I wonder if there's something going on with you, or maybe I feel uneasy because I wasn't sure what I'm contributing was maybe useful to you or that you would like to, listen to. So I just feel a little bit uncomfortable. Would
Mm.
that be objective enough?
Yeah, I think that's a great start. Like, you actually, in that, blurb, you incorporated a few of the steps. I would say probably three of the four steps of
Okay.
NVC. And it doesn't have to occur in that order,
Right,
right? Like,
right.
that I listed, because conversations are dynamic, right? So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a formula, but it's like, yeah, it has those contents, right? So you mentioned, I observed that, you know, 10 minutes ago, your arms were crossed, and you were not making eye contact when I was talking to you,
Right.
right? So that's objective. That's an
Mhm.
objective observation. And I felt um, uneasy. I felt uncomfortable. And then the last step would be to make a request.
Right.
And so I'm curious, what do you want from the
Right.
situation?
I would like you to tell me if when you don't feel ready to talk, you're more than welcome to let me know. And then we can come back together another time when we're both more, I guess, at ease. And then we can talk about our feelings or exchange opinions. Maybe that would be better instead of you needing to pretend to listen, because I'd rather you to be there for me and me for you, vice versa, to have a more productive conversation.
Okay, that's perfect. You
Okay.
know,
Right.
I think, you were asking him to, find a better time to talk. I think another way that you could have framed it would be like, focus on back to you. Like, what is it that you really want out of
Right.
your partner? Like, and make a request out of that. So, like, hey, babe, like, I would really like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Would you like to like spend some time right now to just have like a one-on-one conversation without any distractions? That's really getting the heart of what you want. Because I think what you were saying was more about like sort of making the assumption that he was not ready to talk.
Right.
Which may or may not be true.
True.
So I think just to avoid that stickiness, right, of that not clear situation, you could just go back to what is it that you really want.
Right.
And that's not selfish ultimately, because you're not making a demand. So NVC requests are not demands. It's giving an opportunity to someone else to meet your needs. And if they say no, ultimately they're just trying to meet their own need. And maybe he would express that afterwards. If he says no, he might follow it up with, oh yeah, like right now I'm actually pretty busy, babe. Like I need to focus on this project or something. And then he can make a request, like, can we schedule it for like another time, like another day? And then it goes back to you. Like you could say yes or no, right? Like, so again, it's a back and forth of making requests.
I love that. So just to clarify, so basically request, it's something that you're asking and the other person doesn't feel bad for saying yes or no, but a demand is like, if you don't do this, then it's almost like ultimatum and there's a lot of pressure. Is that what the difference is?
Yeah, absolutely. Because NVC requests are about seeing people for their needs, right? And recognizing that maybe it's not the right time for them, and that's okay. And then so that's where you go back and forth and compromise and see like what will best meet both of your needs ultimately.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I love that. I was going to say something too regarding how when I was making the requests, I tend to make the do something. It's to almost compromise myself so that the other person can feel more comfortable. So that's exactly what I did again in my request, which I'm saying it because other people might resonate with this.
Absolutely.
Because it's almost like putting my own needs down and to the side. Because what I did was like, I want you to feel comfortable when you are ready to listen to me. But then I am now abandoning myself like in a way, because it's like, oh, your needs are greater and above mine. But then it's such a habitual pattern. Like I just literally did that without noticing. And now to think in hindsight, that's what I did again. So I love when you clarify that, no, how can we make requests based on my needs, not just the other person's needs? And that's important.
Yes, it's important.
Yeah,
it's important on so many levels, because you don't want to assume someone's needs without asking, like, hey, and I think it becomes clear when you do that back and forth. Like you put your need on the table and then he can put his need on the table. And so you ultimately start learning about, well, what is it that someone needs in that moment, and give them the opportunity, trust them to be able to articulate that.
Okay, great. I love it. Okay, so let's maybe try a different scenario. Maybe I'll try to be the receiver this time.
Okay.
Yeah, and see what I can hear and what I learn from this experience.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, if you can think of a scenario.
Yeah. So, and do you want me to make a statement that is based on NVC or not?
What do you think, guys? Comments?
Actually, I think I should model NVC, and then we'll see how you respond.
Okay,
That's
good.
That's my gut feeling. Okay. So, I noticed that for the past 2 days, I've been the dishes haven't been done, um, and I would and it makes me feel like um, sad because I really value having a clean house. And so, would it be okay if you helped me wash the dishes every other night this week?
Of course, yeah. Well, thank you and thank you for letting me know. I wasn't realizing that I uh, didn't, clean the dishes for the past few days. So I appreciate that you're being honest and telling me your needs, and I absolutely will do that. That's easy.
I know chores are like kind of easy to talk about.
Yeah, but that's
It's
great. It's so great because that's actually a conversation piece that can go totally go into a big argument, right? It's like it
Mhm.
starts with something small like this. So
Yeah,
it's so important that we address from that point of view too, because it's like something that happens all the time to
it's true.
almost every household, like even not just relationships or with other roommates, right? And
Yeah,
resentment can build like, why is it always just me taking out the garbage? Like, type of thing.
absolutely. Or
Yeah,
in the workplace too, just feeling
right.
like people, if they're not, collaborating. And the key piece, I'll just break down, I guess, what I said there. I was being
Mm,
objective, right? Something that you
yeah,
can see the past 2 days, like that's very, as opposed to saying, oh, like always, or never, like you never wash the
right,
dishes, right?
right.
The past 2 days you haven't washed the dishes. It made me feel sad because I really like the house to be clean, right? And so
Mm.
sad is the feeling, the need is like cleanliness.
Mm.
Um, and and so then I made that request that was specific, right? It wasn't like, so can you do something about it, right? Like, like or just like
You
leave
read
it.
my mind. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. Because like it actually is really helpful when someone else has something concrete that they can like actually do.
Right.
Um, so I suggested like, would you be okay with like washing the dishes every other day this week? And that's very specific.
Mm.
And you want to make sure the request is doable, right? Like that it's something that again like is something you can see and grasp, and
Mm.
that it's not like abstract. Yeah.
Mm.
So I
Right,
was very
right,
very specific there, especially if it's chores, something task oriented. Now,
right,
when it comes to something more abstract, like okay, like
right.
can you listen to me more in
Yeah,
general,
yeah,
right? Then you have to be more specific, right? Especially if you're trying to have um, a conversation. So, like, I guess what you were saying, like, I think a lot of people experience this, right? Where their partner is either like on their phone scrolling, right?
right.
And you feel ignored, right? And again, there's ignored, right? Being a non-feeling because that's putting the
Uh,
blame on someone,
yeah.
right? So it could be kind of like, oh, I noticed that, um, you know, over the past couple of nights, when we're watching TV together, you're just scrolling on your phone instead of engaging with me. And that makes me feel sad because we're not spending quality time together. Uh,
Mm.
would you be open to putting your phone away for those, 2 hours that we're spending together at night, um, so that we can really focus on each other?
Right, right. I love that. And then also say it in a tone that's very calm.
Absolutely. Tone matters. Absolutely. Right.
And slow. Not slow, but like deliberate and not full of emotions. So sometimes would you suggest to maybe take some time to kind of acknowledge those feelings that are coming up and then make that request and have that conversation later on instead of kind of saying things in the heat of the moment when it's much harder to control.
Absolutely. That's a really important point. I'm glad you brought that up. MVC is great to have in your back pocket, but if someone really makes you upset, then it may not be the best time to have that conversation immediately. So,
Mhm.
employ whatever self-care practice that you have for managing difficult emotions,
Yeah.
and have that conversation when you're, in that heart space, to have empathy for that person
Yeah.
and what they may be going through. Because generally,
Mm.
when we're feeling upset or experiencing negative emotions, we're probably too flooded, and our brain is not able to think about
Yeah.
another person and what they're feeling.
Yeah.
We're just too focused on what we're feeling
Yeah. Yeah.
and what we need. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So take the time to do whatever it takes, or whatever you need to honor yourself, and then come back to it, and that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Great.
what I'll say is,
Okay. So how about, yeah.
I wanted to just
Mhm.
offer that, like, you can use NVC on yourself, right? Just ask yourself, like, just without having a conversation before,
Mm.
maybe even before having the conversation with that person, what am I feeling, right? And what is it that I
Oh,
need?
I
And
love
can I
that.
meet that need myself before going into
Yes.
that conversation?
Oh, I love that. That's so
And
good. So
so it's
true.
really about making a request to yourself, like, well, what can I do to take care of this unmet need right
Mm.
now, to get me into a more grounded place to have that conversation?
Right. Oh, I love that. That's so good. Interesting.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, that is such a good point, because it always comes back to ourselves first, right?
Mhm.
To first acknowledge our need, and we can practice that skill without another person. And then once we hone that enough, then we're able to clearly articulate it um, later on to our partner, to our friends, or to whoever,
Yeah,
which is a complete safe space when we're
yeah,
able to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. So, okay, just to kind of reiterate, so what the steps, so that people can kind of like think about how to do that for themselves. So the first step is like, would you say, acknowledge your feelings first, like whatever those feelings are coming up, and
Mhm,
then distinguish if it's a feeling or non-feeling in the
mhm.
NVC world. So a feeling is something that it's from within you, like
Yeah.
a sadness and anger, or even, would you say a disappointment is a non-feeling because it's putting blame on the other person?
So you can that's a great question. I think that's a tricky
Yeah,
one.
yeah, it's like in between, right?
Yeah, it's a little in between. I think it depends on the situation.
Mm,
I think it can go both ways, honestly, because
right,
someone
yeah,
could interpret that as blame. So you might have to
right.
be careful there.
And see who
Uh,
you're talking to, maybe like engage.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if you can try to find another word. And the
right.
cool thing about NVC is that there's actually different lists out there. So there's a
Oh,
list of feelings, and then
okay.
there's a list of needs even. So I can
Oh,
send you those resources so we
that
can
would be
share it with
great.
others. Because
Yes, please.
once
Yeah,
you get familiar with that, then you're like, oh my God, like, yes, this is how I'm feeling, and this is
yeah.
exactly what I'm needing. So that you're not just like
Mm.
trying to make this up, because there is a formula.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, we'll kind of put that resources together in
Yeah.
the group or in the comments, so people can
Yeah.
refer to it. I need it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's amazing. Awesome. Great. Yeah, so that's kind of the first two steps. And then from there, the second step is to well, first step, acknowledge your feelings, know what it is, distinguish between feelings, non-feelings, and then what you need, and then make a
Identifying what you need.
request. Okay,
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Right, right. So I guess this is the formula,
Yeah.
basically. Okay, I like that. Amazing. So let's do like maybe one last role play to see if
Okay.
I got better.
Okay, sure thing.
Okay, so for example, say someone just like full out yelling at me. Um, I don't know where it's coming from, but just yelling at me.
Yeah.
It's a stranger.
Okay.
I would say, let's just say a passenger, like when I'm working on the plane.
Yes, yes. Great
And
example.
because this is helping.
Yeah.
And so my usual response is that I don't say anything, because I'm
Mm.
usually in shock.
Mhm.
And then there's the survival instincts of fight or flight, freeze, and now there's fawn, which is what I do, which is actually people
Mhm.
please, like blackout
Mm.
right in that moment, and then people please, because that's also required in the job. in my job.
Mm.
So in this case, then using NVC, I would then be like, I hear, oh, let's actually, because we never really talk about the formula of how it is to be on the receiving end, actually.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's actually the same steps. You're just
okay.
flipping it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the first step is for me to ask them how they feel, or
So good question. So say they're complaining to you about something. You can just
right.
be like, "Oh, okay. I notice that you're upset because of X, Y, and Z."
So it's still
Whatever.
an observation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then observation of what they did, and then their identify possibly their feelings, or ask them about their feelings.
That's a good question. Now we're getting into the customer service world. Okay. So let's think of a very specific incident that happened.
Okay.
Like, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So for example, we ran out of chickens.
Okay.
There's only beef left because they're at the back of the plane.
Right.
They're like, I can't eat beef. No, I can't eat beef.
Yeah.
I can only eat chicken. So they're upset.
Right.
We ran out. So now they're kind of yelling at me. And it's a very legitimate, real situation.
Yeah, I'm sure that comes up all the time. So you don't. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No. So then, in this case, what would you suggest?
Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to point out that they're angry, because that might make them more angry.
Yeah.
But you just internalize, just like, you're assessing their feeling.
Right.
And the whole idea is you're trying to empathize with them, right? You're trying to be compassionate. You're trying to put yourself in their shoes, ultimately.
Yeah.
So acknowledge that they're angry in your head. You know that they're angry, and just think about it. How would you feel if you were in that situation, right? Maybe you wouldn't get incensed at the,
I think that's the disconnect, because I'm quite low maintenance, and so I would judge the other person for like, get over it, just eat the freaking beef. Like, it's kind of like, and I have totally no empathy, because I wouldn't do what they do. Right.
So that it sounds like you're having a hard time empathizing because you just wouldn't respond that way.
Exactly. So how would you kind of reconcile that?
Yeah. So ultimately, you want to practice seeing people again for their needs, right? So understanding that their feeling of anger is connected to a need not being met. And when you start seeing people for their needs, then you can have empathy for them. So anger is connected with their need not being met. And that need, we could guess, is that, they might have a diet restriction, right? Like, for whatever reason. It might be for their health reasons or religious reasons. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So something there is not being met. So once you see it for that, as opposed to, well, he's angry and I just wouldn't get angry, right? But seeing that he has this need that's not being met, right? So,
and that's valid. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's valid.
Situations, I might get upset for other things, but maybe not this specific thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So seeing that need for what it is should help you pave the path to feeling more empathy for them. Right. It's hard to empathize when someone's yelling at you because they're angry, right? Yeah. And then it's like their reptilian brain triggering your reptilian brain, right?
Yeah, and it's like this defense mechanism that you want to
Yeah. So that's why it's so important to connect feelings and needs, right? Negative feelings are always associated with a need not being met. Okay. So once you see that, then you can just move on and ask them, like, so what what would you like instead? It just be, really
Just
concrete.
straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even have to say the whole thing of I observe that you are angry or anything.
No, no.
Go there.
That would be awkward, I think.
Just ask them, what would you need? How can I help you?
Yeah, because it's implied that they're angry, right? That's the thing about NVC. It's not like robotic, right? It's a whole thing that is skillful and nuanced.
Right. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Marie here in the comments was saying, and being okay with them saying yes or no. I guess earlier when we were talking about making requests so that people can have an option and have a choice. Yeah. And then I think she's laughing at the fact that the flight attendant joke because she's also one.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. And the funny thing is, I remember when I was learning about MVC many years back. Basically, if you didn't have needs, you wouldn't be alive. So having needs is really a part of being a human being. And so if we can see people as humans, having, their own issues, going through things, like that helps you kind of feel connected and put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
It doesn't, now at the same time, that doesn't excuse people's rudeness or bad behavior or an abusive partner, things like that. That's I'm not saying that that's okay.
Right.
But that's a sort of like another thing to observe, obviously, that dynamic. If someone is, abusing, the relationship, then that's something else that we have to discuss.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it also comes back to the self too. It's like when I explain how I wouldn't make that request if I was him. That's why I didn't have the empathy. It's maybe part of it is that I didn't address my own needs either. It's almost like I have that pattern of sacrificing my own needs for other people. So then I expect them to do the same. So then I have less empathy for other people when they're making requests, right? So then the first step is to actually acknowledge that we all have needs and it's okay to address them. And once I'm able to honor that, then again would translate to more empathy for other people. So again, it comes back to the self of that it's okay, like you said, as a human to have needs. And you're not too much, you're not all of that. And that can tie into a lot of like the childhood upbringing, all the different things that people have been through and why like I kind of got there, but that's what I was internalizing because this is very specific for me that I shouldn't ask for anything and just be independent, just do your thing, don't ever ask. So I'm sure other people relate to this as well. But I think that's why this process is important to address. And I think the first step is to really do this whole thing within ourselves first, whenever we feel a certain feeling, to maybe even journal that out or think about it in that way. You can kind of rewire the process.
Yes, that was so beautifully said, Clover. You're so right about going back to yourself, because just taking that same situation again where you got yelled at, right? In that moment, you tell me, how were you feeling?
I was feeling, this is going to go deep. I was feeling, okay, do I have to do the feeling, non-feeling thing?
No. Just say how you feel. Like, I know it's not fair because you don't have the whole list of NVC feelings in front of you.
Like, I don't know. I feel blamed. Like, see, this is like a non-feeling word, but I feel blamed for something that I didn't do. I didn't make the chicken or the beef. Like, you know, so it's like, why is it my problem? Type of thing.
So, okay, let's just stick with that. Maybe you don't have another word in your mind. You're not going to say that out loud, but this is for your own experience, right? Evaluating your feelings. So what need could that possibly connect to? What need is not met if you're feeling blamed?
Again, not being... Good question.
Can I take a guess?
Sure. Yeah.
I imagine that you're not feeling respected.
Yes. 100%. I was gonna say valued, but I think respected is a better
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah, valued or seen as like another human being just trying to do her job, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and and so when you're feeling blamed and just ultimately, in that situation, you didn't feel like this person respected you because of the way that they acted. And so what can you request of yourself? What can you do in the moment to help you meet that need for respect?
I actually have to first respect myself in a way that
Mm,
wasn't like to detach that situation from him not respecting me, because it's perspective, right? If I respect myself enough, whatever is happening outside of me doesn't matter, because it's not about them.
yeah,
It's not about me either, because it's just like I already internally have respect for myself, so it doesn't matter what's happening. So I
exactly.
think that's the part, almost interestingly, that people mirror back what kind of feelings that you're maybe suppressing, or that you're ignoring within
Mm,
yourself, uh, when you're very triggered. Like, I realize that, because if you were to be complete and whole within yourself, that wouldn't even bother you in the first place.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was so insightful, like
Mm.
amazing. I mean, I'm so glad that we touched on this, even though, we're coming towards the end, but like
Yeah.
this really shows you that communication is, we often think about it as like just between me and another person, but it really starts with you,
Yeah.
right? Because then if you're meeting that need of respecting yourself and recognizing that you have inherent value and worth, this is just going to roll off your shoulder. You
Mhm.
don't even need to engage with his anger anymore, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, because it has nothing to do with you. It's just him having an experience, and that was difficult for him, but it's
Yeah.
not personal. But when, I guess, there's like a little, I guess, disconnect within ourselves, then, for
Mm.
example, whatever feeling that's coming up, that it's a great opportunity for us to look at that, to unpack why and where we got that from, and to release that from us. And again, it's okay to have those feelings. We all do, but it's just, yeah, again, a great time to reflect on it. And well, right now I feel like this is going to be a fun exercise, actually, to like keep finding out like the different things that is triggering me, so that I can kind of unpack all of the stuff that I've been feeling
Yeah.
lately, because I've been suppressing a lot of emotions too, which I'm sure a lot of people feel that way as well.
Yeah. And one last thing that I did want to share is that, how do we take it to the next step then, right?
Mhm.
Because if NVC is founded on having compassion for another
Yeah.
person,
Mhm.
right? How do we actually go from taking care of our need to seeing this other person and having
Mhm.
compassion for them? And
Yeah.
compassion means suffering with, actually, if you look at the translation of
Mm.
the word compassion.
Okay.
So to really be present for them and have care for them. Uh,
Mm.
so the next step would be seeing that the way the person acted in that moment, perhaps maybe they weren't respecting themselves, possibly, right?
Mhm. Yes, to see it from the other angle. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they were being violent with themselves by the way that they
I love that. That's so
responded.
true. That's so true. Yeah, not only are they triggering a certain emotion off of us, but they're also being triggered by an external situation. We're actually both connected in that way,
Yeah.
that we're the same at the end of the day. Like, if that makes sense. That's when you have the empathy and compassion for them, but we're
Yeah.
maybe coming from a different angle, but we're also needing the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so great. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's great. It's very insightful. Thank you. And Marie was saying, yeah, yes, knowing it's okay to have needs without feeling needy. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There is a difference. That's right. I love it.
Yeah,
Great.
I feel like we could go on forever.
I
with
know,
so
but
many
this is
different
ending.
people.
Yeah, thank you so much. And where can the audience find you? That was amazing coaching. I know that's what you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's very simple. It's maeyancoaching.com. So my first name, Maeyan coaching.com. I also have a Facebook page. Instagram is Mae Yan Coaching. And if you want to join my Facebook group, Subtle Asian Breakups, that is also available on Facebook. So it's just facebook.com/groups/Subtle Asian Breakups. And the group is really open to anyone that identifies as Asian that is either going through or healing from a breakup or any major life transition, right? Breakups don't have to necessarily be with a partner, but could be, with another loved one or family member, or transitioning in your job or moving somewhere. Breakups can be, in so many different forms. So I invite you to join the community because it's a place for us to connect and to learn more about self-love and just be in that journey together.
Amazing. Thank you so much, May. Really, that was such a great coaching session. I'm sure a lot of people learned a lot. I learned a lot for sure. So I'm going to have to go back to it. And we can always just Google that list, right? Of like what feelings are, non-feelings, and then needs. That way we can refer back to it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of lists floating out there. So yeah, just Google nonviolent communication, feelings list, needs list. You'll find something.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for watching, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you.